Now we will read the last chapter, Motivation and Learning, from the portion Child Development and Pedagogy. Motivation and Learning. This chapter is very important from seated point of view. In seated exam, one or two questions regularly asked from this chapter. Focus topics of this chapter are motivation and its type, theories of motivation, learning, etc. Motivation. Motivation is one of the most important and frequently used word in psychology. It refers to the factors which move or activate the organism. We infer the presence of motivation when we see that people work towards certain goals. That is, we might observe that a student works hard almost at every task that comes to him or her. From this, we infer that the person has motive to achieve. All human behavior appears to arise in response to some form of internal, psychological, or external environmental stimulation. The behaviors, however, are not random. They often involve some purpose or goal. It is often held that behavior takes place as a result of the arousal of certain motives. Thus, motivation can be defined as the process of activating, maintaining, and directing behavior towards a particular goal. Definition of motivation given by various thinkers are as follows. According to Skinner, motivation is the super highway to learning. According to Good, motivation is the process of arousing, sustaining, and regulating activity. Types of motivation. There are two types of motivation or arousals. They can be either internally or externally driven. The desire for food or sex arises from within us, intrinsic, while the yearning to obtain recognition or approval is influenced by the condition in our environment, is extrinsic. In view of the above explanation, motivation is divided into intrinsic and extrinsic, which are as follows. Intrinsic or internal motivation. It is an internal force or motive within the individual which propels him or her into emitting certain behavior. It is an innate or genetically predetermined disposition to behave in a particular way when he or she faces a particular situation. This type of motivation can make an individual to have the feelings of self-confidence and competence. A student who is intrinsically motivated may carry out a task because of the enjoyment he or she derives from such a task. In another way, a dog that sees a bone and runs for it did that because of the satisfaction it derives from eating done. This type of behavior doesn't require any prior learning. Sighting the bone changes the behavior of the dog and propels it to act. Extrinsic or external motivation. This is the external or environmental factor which sets the individual's behavior into motion. The incentive or reinforce drives an individual's behavior towards a goal. A student who is extrinsically motivated will execute an action in order to obtain some rewards or avoid some sanctions. That is a student who studied hard for the examination because of the desire to obtain better grade. The case also goes for a runner who wants to win a prize. He or she will need constant practice than a person who wants to run for the fun of it. Extrinsic rewards should be used with caution because they have the potential for decreasing intrinsic motivation. For example, internship may spur a student to actively participate in the tasks for which the student has no interest, but may undermine intrinsic and continuing motivation in him or her. Therefore, students' motivation automatically has to do with the students' desire to participate in the learning process. It also concerns the reasons or goals that underline their involvement or non-involvement in academic activities. Characteristic of motivation. On the analysis of definition of motivation, we can derive the following characteristic of motivation. Motivation is a psychological phenomenon. Motivation is an internal feeling which generates within an individual. Motivating factors are always unconscious, but they are to be aroused by managerial actions. So motivation is a psychological phenomenon. Motivation is based on needs. Needs may be consciously or unconsciously felt. Needs may be a fundamental needs such as food, clothes, shelter, etc., or ego-satisfying needs such as self-development, self-actualization. These needs vary with individual and with the same individual over time. Goals are motivators. Motivation causes goal-directed behavior. Feeling of needs by the person causes him to behave in such a way that tries to satisfy himself. Goal and motives cannot be separated. Therefore, it is essential for the management to know employee's goal to push him to work, because a man works to achieve the goals. As soon as the goal is achieved, he would be no longer interested in work. Motivation is different from satisfaction. Motivation implies a drive towards an outcome, while satisfaction involves outcomes already experienced. Satisfaction is the competent experience when a want is satisfied. Motivation is a continuous process. Motivation is an unending process. Wants are innumerable and cannot be satisfied at one time. If one basic need is adequately satisfied for a given individual, it loses power as a motivator. But other needs continue to emerge. As satisfaction of needs is an unending process, so the process of motivation is also unending. Motivation is related to person in totality. Person in totality, not in part, is motivated. A person's basic needs are interrelated because each individual is an integrated, organized whole. So, characteristic of motivations are: motivation is a psychological phenomena. Motivation is based on needs. Goals are motivators. Motivation is different from satisfaction. Motivation is a continuous process, and motivation is related to a person in totality, not in part. Principles of motivations. Motivating student is a complicated business, no matter what age they may be. When students want to complete their work and want to succeed, things will go well in your classroom. They will learn and you will have a rewarding day at school. Here are the 10 very brief ideas that are useful in teaching practice. All learning must have a purpose. Teachers and students should work together to establish long-term goals so that the work is relevant to students' life and driven by a purpose. There are rarely a student who wanted to work just for the sake of working. Students need the skills and knowledge. All the students require necessary knowledge to complete their work and achieve their goal. Help students to achieve short-term goals to develop the competencies that need to be successful. Keeping binders in order, learning to listen carefully, paying attention. These are just some of the skills that students need to make learning accessible. Specific directions empower students. When students know exactly what they must to do, complete assignments, they will approach their work with confidence and interest. Giving good direction is an art form, keeping them simple, brief, and logical. Students want to have fun while they work. Teachers who offer enjoyable learning activities find that students are less likely to be off task. Teachers also want to have fun when they work. offer activities that involve higher order thinking skill. Students find open-ended questions and critical thinking more engaging than activities involving just recall of facts. Road drills do have a place in any learning environment, but few kids are really inspired by them. Work that remains higher level thinking skill will move your students in the right directions. Curiosity is an important component of motivation. When students want to learn more about a topic, they will tackle challenging assignments in order to satisfy their curiosity. Even something as simple as asking a provocative questions to get students thinking in a new way can spark curiosity. A blend of praise and encouragement is effective in building self-reliance. Teachers who offer sincere praise and encouragement establish a positive, nourishing classroom environment. When students know that they are on the right track, they will want to continue. A combination of extrinsic and intrinsic rewards. Rewards helps in increasing the student's focus and time on task behavior. When used separately, both types of rewards motivate students. However, when teachers combine them, the effect is much greater. Involve students in collaborative activities. When students work together, motivation and achievement both soar. Students tend to work harder. When students believe that their teacher like them, this is probably the most important principle of motivation. Why should students work for a grudgy teacher? If your students know that they matter to you, then they will be much more inclined to stay on task than if they believe that you are not invested in their success. So how can we increase the motivations? All learning must have a purpose. Students need the skill and knowledge. Specific direction empowers students. Students want to have fun while they work. Offer activities that involve higher order thinking. Curiosity is an important component of motivation. A blend of praise and encouragement is effective in building self-reliance. A combination of extrinsic and intrinsic rewards involves students in collaboration activities. Students tend to work harder when they like teacher and when they know that they are also liked by the teacher. Learning in psychology, the process by which a relatively lasting change in potential behavior occurs because of practice and experience. Learning is also a process of acquiring modifications in existing knowledge, skills, habits, or tendencies through experience, practice, or exercise. Gates and others. Learning is the modifications of behavior through experience. Skinner, learning is the process of progressive behavior adaptation. Moon, the learn is to modify behavior and experience. MLPG, learning may be considered as change in insight, behavior, perceptions, motivations, or a combination of these. The given definition emphasizes four attributes of learning. A process, the first is the learning is permanent change in behavior. It does not include change due to illness, fatigue, maturation, and use of intoxicant. The learning is not directly observable but manifested in the activities of the individual. Learning depends on practice and experience. Nature of learning. Learning is adaptation or adjustment. All persons continuously interact with their environment. We often make adjustment and adapt to our social environment. Through a process of continuous learning, the individual prepares himself for necessary adjustment or adaptation. That is why learning is also described as a process of progressive adjustment to overchanging conditions which one encounters. Learning is improvement. Learning is often considered as a process of improvement with practice and training. We learn many things which help us to improve our performance. Learning is organizing experience. Learning is not mere addition of knowledge, it is the reorganization of experience. Learning brings behavioral changes. Whenever the directions of the changes may be, learning brings progressive changes in the behavior of an individual. That is why he is able to adjust the changing situation. Learning is active. Learning doesn't take place without a purpose and self activity. In any teaching learning process, the activity of the learners counts more than the activity of a teacher. Learning is goal directed. When the aim and purpose of learning is clear, an individual learns immediately. It is the purpose or goal which determines what the learner sees in the learning situations and how he acts. If there is no purpose or goal, learning can hardly be seen. Learning is universal and continuous. All living creatures learn. Every moment the individual engages himself to learn more and more. Right from the birth of a child till the death, learning continues. So, the properties of learning are: learning is adaptation or adjustment, learning is improvement, learning is organizing experience, learning brings behavioral changes, learning is active, learning is goal directed, and learning is universal and continuous. Characteristic of learning. Yakum and Simpson have stated the following general characteristic of learning. Learning is growth, adjustment, organizations of experience, purposeful, both individual and social product of environment. According to W. McClure, learning has the following characteristic. Learning is a continuous modification of behavior which continues throughout life. Learning is pervasive. It reaches into all aspects of human being. Learning involves the whole person socially, emotionally, and intellectually. Learning is often a change in the organization of behavior. Learning is development. Time is one of its dimensions. Learning is responsive to incentives. In most cases, positive incentives such as rewards are most effective than negative incentives such as punishment. Learning is always concerned with goals. These goals can be expressed in terms of behavior, observable behavior. Interest and learning are positively related. The individual learns best those things which he is interested in learning. Most boys find learning to play football easier than learning to add fractions. Learning depends on maturations and motivations. Process of learning. Learning is a process. It carried out through steps. Learning process involves a motive or a drive, an attractive goal, block to the attainment of the goal. Other factors contributing to learning. Learning in psychologically the process by which a relatively lasting change in potential behavior occurs because of practice or experience. Learning is also a process of acquiring modification in existing knowledge, skills, habits, or tendencies through experience, practice, or exercise. There are few factors which influence learning process. Personal factors influence learning. The process of learning is influenced by a variety of factors. A true knowledge of these factors will prove very helpful for teachers and parents in understanding and guiding their children's learning. Sensation and perception. Apart from the general health of the students, sensation and perception are the psychological factors which help in learning. Sensation is at the core of perception. There are 5 sense organs like skin, ears, Tongue, eyes, and nose. These sense organs are the gateway of knowledge and help in perception of various stimuli in the environment. Fatigue and boredom. The difference between the two is that fatigue is mental or physical tiredness which decreases in efficiency and competency to work. Boredom, on the other hand, is lack of desire or an aversion to work. Such an aversion makes one feel fatigue without being actually fatigued. Studying seldom causes fatigue. It is mainly boredom which, besides causing the impressions of fatigue, decreases student efficiency in learning. Age and maturation. Learning is directly dependent upon age and maturation. No learning can take place unless individual is matured enough to learn. Some children can learn better at earlier age while others take more time to learn the same content. Emotional conditions. Desirable emotional conditions enhance the quality and speed of learning. Happiness, joy, and satisfaction are also favorable for any type of learning. Adverse emotional conditions, on the other hand, hinder learning. Many students have established the fact that emotional stress, tensions, disturbance, etc. are extremely harmful. Needs. A need is the lack of something which is provided would facilitate children's usual behavior. The lack of something is experienced by a child. The child then tries to perform the activity which culminates in the satisfaction of the needs. Interest. As the child grows older, his interests diversify and stabilize. You, a school teacher, should have true knowledge of children's interest. Once the student's interest is aroused in an activity, you should expend more effort on it. No learning can be achieved without proper expenditure of effort on it. Intelligence as expressed by an IQ score on an intelligence test is positively related to learning. Generally, students with higher IQ learn rapidly. Aptitude. A student who possesses appropriate aptitude for a particular subject of study or skill will learn better and retain it for a longer time. On the other hand, he will require relatively longer time to study a subject for which he lacks natural aptitude. He is liable to forget it soon. Attitude. The learning process is also influenced considerable by the attitude of the student. If he is alert, attentive, and interested in the material to be learned, he is bound to have a favorable attitude towards it. Environmental factors influencing learning. Environmental influencing being from the time of birth of the child. External environment refers to the surrounding which prevail in home, school, and locality. At these places, the children interacts with members of the family, teachers, classmates, or peers and neighbors and establish relationship with them. The relationship with the members of the society and surrounding may affect the development of a child and also the way he learns. Some of the environmental factors are discussed as follows. Surrounding, natural, social, and cultural. As the title of the subsection indicates, we shall discuss here natural, social, and cultural environment the child interacts with get influenced. Natural surrounding covers the climatic and atmospheric conditions. These conditions affect learning directly. It is been found that high temperature and humidity reduce the mental efficiency. For A limited times humidity and high temperature can be tolerated, but prolonged humidity and high temperature become unbearable and decrease mental efficiency. Social surrounding, including includes especially the environment of home, school, and locality. Physical conditions at home, such as large family, small family, insufficient ventilations, improper lighting, uncomfortable temperature, noisy home environment due to use of ratio due to use of radio, television, etc., noisy neighborhood, constant visit by friends or relatives, etc., influence the intellectual learning of the students. Cultural demands and social expectations also influence learning. The spirit of cultural is reflected in its social and educational institution. Children's learning, therefore, is gently determined by the demands expectation of their culture. Relationship with teacher, parents, and peers. The teacher is an important constitute in the instructional process. He or she plays an important role in shaping the behavior of students. The way he teaches and manages the students has an effect on their learning. Relationship with parents plays a vital role in the learning process of the students. If the child parents relationship is based on mutual respect and faith, it can provide a child a congenial atmosphere which in turn can facilitate his or her learning. A distorted or unhealthy environment, on the other hand, adversely affects the learning of the student. A healthy peer group relationship also plays an important role in learning. Student relationship in the classroom, school, society, etc. create a particular type of emotional climate. The climate solely depends upon their relationship. Media influence or learning. Media has been considered as an important component of transmitting information. Media can be divided into two broad categories: print and non-print media. Print media refers to text and printed material. It is economical and has traditionally been used for pedagogical purposes. Motivation and learning. Motivation has several effects on students' learning and behavior. Motivation directs behavior towards particular goals. Motivation determines the specific goals towards which learners step. Thus, it affects the choice students make, for instance, whether to enroll in physics or studio art, whether to spend an evening completing a challenging homework assignment, of playing video games with friends. So motivation directs the behavior towards a goal. Motivation leads to increased effort and energy. Motivation increases the amount of effort and energy that learners expend in activities directly related to their needs and goals. It determines whether they pursue a task enthusiastically and wholeheartedly, or apathetically and lackadaisically. Motivation increases initiation of and persistence in activities. Learners are most likely to begin a task they actually want to do when they are also more likely to continue working at it until they have completed it, even if they are occasionally interrupted or frustrated in the process. Motivation affects cognitive process. Motivation affects what learners pay attention to and how efficiently they process it. For instance, motivated learners often make a concentrated effort to truly understand classroom materials, to learn it meaningfully, and consider how they might use it in their own lives. Motivation determines which consequences are reinforcing and punishing. The more learners are motivated to achieve academic success, then the more they will be proud of an A and upset by a low grade. Motivation often enhance performance because of the other effects just identified: goal directed behavior, effort and energy, initiation and persistence, cognitive process, and the impact of consequence. Motivation often leads to improved performance. Important suggestions to keep students motivated are: plan for every class, never try to wing it, pay attention to the strengths and limitations of each of your students, reward their strengths and strengthen their weakness. Vary your instructional strategies, lectures, demonstrations, discussion, case studies, group, and more. Review the learning objectives with your students. Be sure students know what they are expected to learn, to know, etc. Do know, etc. Put some excitement into your speech. Vary your pitch, volume, and rate, and give lots of example. Encourage students to share their ideas and comments even if they are incorrect. You will never know what students don't understand unless they ask them. Involve your students in your teaching. Ask for feedback. Importance of motivation for teachers are: make your classes relevant. Be sure students see how the content relates to them and the world around them. Make you consistent in your treatment of students. Make sure that your exams are current, valid, and reliable. Tie your assignments to your course objectives. Provide opportunities for students to speak to the class. Plan around 15 to 20 minute cycle. Students have difficulty maintaining attention for a longer period of time.